Build a game plan for my first 90 days of motherhood with me. Now, before I begin, I know that you might be watching this thinking, she's unhinged for building a game plan for motherhood, but hear me out. I'm a firm believer that there are two types of people in this world. The people who run a marathon, just putting one foot in front of the next, just getting on with it. And then there are the people who thrive with like a dedicated training plan, who like to know when their breaks on the marathon are gonna be, who like to have a countdown of how many miles they have left. I've never run a marathon, but if I did, I know that I would firmly fall into that second bucket. And so with that in mind, let's talk motherhood. I am under no illusion that motherhood is going to be one of the most difficult but rewarding things I've ever done. I know that it's going to be physically demanding, mentally draining, and when I layer on the fact that I know very little about babies and newborns, I've been trying to do as much preparation as I can to give myself better visibility into what to expect, what my son's going to be going through, what his experience will be like, so that I can show up for him as best as possible. Now that said, I am mildly nervous that in the haze of new motherhood, everything that I've learned will go out the window. And for that reason, I want to create one source of truth that I can go to even when I'm exhausted, even when I'm feeling the most rubbish, where I can get the key information that I need so I don't kind of lose track of anything and again can show up for him the best that I can. Enter the game plan. The game plan is essentially going to manifest itself as a desk calendar that I got from Target because we fancy, with all of the key information on it that I have collated from different sources and that I want to keep on my radar going into those first 90 days of motherhood. There's 4 buckets that I'm intending to put into this game plan. I'll give you an overview that I'll break down what each of those are. The first is key dates. The second is developmental milestones. The third is planned schedule changes. And the fourth is just general mental health stuff. Now, before I go into what each of these are, if you're finding this video helpful, please repost it. Please send it to someone who you think might find it helpful. Maybe they also would benefit from building a game plan themselves. But let me break down each of these buckets into a bit more depth. The first bucket, as I said, is key dates. And that is around capturing my scheduled C-section date, my son's due date, as well as any travel dates for family. This one is super simple, super basic. The second bucket is around developmental milestones. And for this, I'm basing it heavily on the Wonderweeks book. If you're not familiar, the Wonderweeks is based on the premise that there are, I think, 10 leaps that babies go through in the first 84 weeks of life. I'm going to be focusing heavily on the first 3 months, but essentially they break down each leap into a period of fussiness, the leap itself, and then a period of calm. So broadly speaking, while every baby is different, you can have an idea of when you can expect your baby to be fussier than usual, when they'll be going through a developmental leap. And this is something that I really want to keep front and center, not just so that I can kind of know better what to expect if I'm seeing increased fussiness, but also so that I can then go to the book and read more about that specific leap. So each leap is broken down into more depth. So you can see like leap 3 is here, for example, but this calendar really captures like week on week what you can expect. And I want to take that and put it into my game plan so that I have that easy to see in one place. Now, moving on to the third bucket, which is planned schedule changes. I totally respect anyone who wants to do parenting however they want to do it. I think everyone has to do what's right for them. But for us, we're going to be doing the moms-on-call method as much as we can. But I've heard so many good things about this approach. And a good friend of mine also said that she was having trouble with her son sleeping. And as soon as she implemented this, within like 2 or 3 days, her son was sleeping through the night. And just from a mental health perspective of getting sleep, I think that's incredibly valuable for the family unit, not just for the baby. Again, personally, this is just my 2 cents. And what I love about this is not only is it a great resource overall, it's a very quick read and very easy to refer back to, but it has weekly schedules broken down by the hour. So it has one for 2 to 4 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, etc. It tells you when you should be playing with your baby, when to be feeding, when to try and put them down for a nap. And I think this will be incredibly valuable for us to help set healthy sleep habits with our child. We're going to kind of see how it goes for us. I'm not going to say 100% that we'll stick to this, but my intention going into it is that we will use this. And so with that in mind, I want to map out when we'll see those schedule changes so that I know, okay, it's time to shift what we're doing based on the book. One other thing that I would add, and this also applies to the developmental mapping that I want to do, is that this is all based on gestational age, not birthday. And what I mean by that is if you are like us having your child early, so our son's going to be born 2 weeks before his due date, everything that's in these books is shifted by 2 weeks. So if a milestone happens at the 6-week mark in this book, for us, it'll happen at the 8-week mark because our son will be 2 weeks behind, if you see what I mean, because he's born 2 weeks early. So coming back to this, alongside planned schedule changes, I also want to capture when we'll be moving him into his own room. Our intention is to have him in his bassinet in our room for the first 4 months, and then move the bassinet into his room for 2 months, and then move him into his crib. Again, I'm very mindful these are just our plans, and we'll kind of have to deal with things as they come, but in terms of a high level approach, this is what we're thinking. And I want to make sure we have that captured on the game plan. So again, I can very easily see, okay, this week we're meant to be putting him into the bassinet into his room versus being in our room. Now, the last thing that I wanted to put into the game plan is the mental health bucket. And what I mean by that is that I have heard that the first 90 days are the most difficult when it comes to having a newborn. This is meant to peak at the 6-week mark. Again, this is based on gestational age. So for us, this will be the 8-week mark. And then at the 3-month mark, or that 90-day mark, it's meant to really subside. For us, that'll be 105 days. So I want to include a countdown in the game plan from the time that my child is born, 105 days counting down to that fussiness drop-off point, so that when I'm feeling my most stressed, when I'm my most tired, when I'm feeling like I can't keep going, I can look at that calendar and say, okay, we've got 55 days left. We've got 40 days left. And this is not to say that I don't want to enjoy it or that I want to rush the process, but I know that I will benefit from knowing how long we have left of that more difficult newborn phase before we find our swing of things. I also think that it'll be a way to reposition in my brain that yes, this is hard, but this moment is so fleeting and you don't have that much time when he's going to be this little. And alongside the countdown, I also want to do kind of cheesy things like put quotes that I like and write little notes to myself, which might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's the kind of thing that I like to do. So that's an overview of my game plan. Let me know if you have any questions or what you think. I'd be curious to hear if you're a parent watching this, if you think this is totally wild or if you think this is a great idea. If you're going to build your own game plan, do let me know. And if you got value out of this video, please repost it. Please send it to someone who you think might find it helpful. And I will for sure make a video sharing the final product once it's all done.